Let's talk about BYU football as we are, Friday, first day of BYU spring drills last just about a month long. And we'll get I think, a decent look at what this BYU football program is going to look like in 2026. But don't expect it to change a ton from 2025 because, might I remind you, BYU retained essentially every top option on the roster that had eligibility remaining. They're all coming back. They're running it back for the BYU football program. That puts them in prime position to make another run at the Big 12 title, make a run at the college football playoff, etc. There is a position, though, that while it was the heart and soul of BYU's offense a season ago, and I'm speaking of BYU's running backs, and more particularly, I'm talking about LJ Martin, BYU needs more from the running back position. That may sound crazy to say, but what I mean by that is you need somebody to step up and prove, A, they can be available when called upon, and B, produce at a decent level. That has been hard to come by for the BYU running back position outside of LJ the past couple of years. Seemingly every other game, there will be a name that pops up, whether it's a Sione Moa. Going back in the day, you can think of guys that just name after name. They would have moments in a BYU uniform, and then they'd get injured. They would be gone for 2 or 3 games and then cycle back through other names. And that was an issue that really, I think, hampered BYU's depth and the ability to really compete at an elite level a season ago, was not having an adequate running back capable of stepping up when LJ Martin went down against Iowa State, being effective at the game down against Texas Tech. And quite honestly, in the Big 12 title game, just not having a true second or tertiary option to run the football with. That is what this spring camp has got to hopefully have an answer for the BYU football program, because LJ, there's nobody arguing that he is that guy for the BYU offense, because he is now just 1,347 yards away from being BYU's all-time leading rusher. And are you betting against him doing it this year? Because I'm not. He just put up a 1,300-yard season and missed the better part of at least 1, maybe 2 games. I think he's got everything capable of being that leading rusher, but somebody else on this roster has to step up. Can you get a healthy run finally from Sione Moa? When Sione Moa has been on the field, he's been a fantastic option, but the problem has been injuries, and some of them have been really unlucky. To have compartment syndrome after a seemingly innocuous hit late against East Carolina, that knocked him out essentially for the rest of the year. Comes back in the Big 12 title game, got injured on the very first play from scrimmage in the Big 12 title game. That's just plain bad luck, it feels like, in some ways, for a guy like Sione Moa. The hope is that this spring, if he's cleared to go, because we'll find out come Friday if he is, but if he is, I'm not betting against Sione Moa becoming that backup running back. But does that mean there's other guys that aren't on this roster that can make a run at that? I look mainly at Jovesa Damuni. Aaron Roderick crowed about Jovesa Damuni being what he called a different back, a speed back, capable of bringing a different element to the BYU offense. While LJ Martin is a true battering ram, do everything back, having a speed back capable of kind of just taking a different approach to the running back position wouldn't be a bad thing to have, but we need to see Jovesa become a solid option and be capable and dependable at the running back spot. If he can become that, yeah, he could unseat a guy like Sione Moa as that backup running back. But they've also added 2 guys coming in, one a transfer coming off of a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ, and a high school and early enrollee that I absolutely think have the capability of contributing early on in their careers, provided they pick up this offense. Those are Micah Beckstead, who's a 5'10", 240-pound bruiser from Timpview High School. You heard that right. Okay, 238 pounds, but 5'10", 238. If he proves that he's in shape and he can pick up this offense, I don't discount what Micah Beckstead, what he produced at the high school level. I think he can translate, at least to some degree, to the Power 4 level, and he absolutely could have a role to play in this BYU offense. But a guy that I have enjoyed watching his entire high school career is Devaughn Eka. 5'11", 195 pounds. And yes, he is an 18-year-old early enrollee freshman. He might even be 17. I don't even know if he's 18 yet. But what I've seen from Devaughn Eka, he's got the lateral ability that very few high school running backs seem to have. And that's why BYU prioritized bringing him in. I'm not saying that Devaughn Eka is going to win this running back backup job, but who's going to say that he couldn't do it? Because It's nothing against the other guys on this list. Preston Rex, Charlie Miska, Lucky Finau, Logan Payne. The problem is with all of those guys that I have seen in decent doses is, I reiterate a point I make on this podcast all the time. You want to see the best ability is availability. And when you're not available to play, well, you're doing nobody any favors. So one or two of these guys, hopefully by the end of spring camp, will have emerged and have kind of established themselves in that pecking order behind LJ Martin as saying, yeah, I'm next up in that spot. And that absolutely needs to be answered this spring ball. I expect that Harvey Unga is going to put these guys through their paces. I expect that Aaron Roderick is going to put them in a myriad of different drills and the like to get the best feel for this position that he possibly can get for them. And may the best man win. It's no shade being cast at anybody, but this is a competition that has got a lot of bodies in it, and to the victor goes the spoils. And I know that the victor in this circumstance, what do they get? Maybe 10 carries a game at very most, but still, it is an important role. BYU needs to find a capable back, and the fact that they didn't bring anybody in via the transfer portal, I didn't like that personally. I would have liked to have seen them bring in somebody via the portal and maybe overpay a little bit to get a person out of the portal, but they're betting on continuity. They're betting on the guys they have in this room. And whether it is a Micah Beckstead or Devaughn Eka as the newcomers to this room, or if they're one of the holdovers in Preston Rex or Sione Moa or Jovesa Damuni, one or two of these guys has to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Because if they don't, I don't fancy BYU being honestly quite that different from what they were a season ago. And they're pretty formidable a season ago, but they could be even better if they can find a nice, true complement, the Robin to LJ Martin's Batman. And that Robin has to be available at the drop of a hat, and they've got to stay healthy. If they can find that, yeah, BYU could be a lot more dynamic on offense and could be even better than when they were a season ago, going 12-2. But if they don't, maybe that's going to be the ceiling once again. Maybe that will be where BYU will realize maybe that bringing in a transfer portal option maybe was the best course of action, but in some ways it's a little too late now because they've been picked over a little bit in terms of the options out there in the portal. But we'll all find out together how things look. But I pray, and I'm just looking forward to seeing which running back or backs kind of separate themselves in that race to be that complement to LJ Martin. All right, another position group that could have a whole lot of new faces because, quite honestly, the old faces aren't there. That's special teams. Who are the kickers? Who are the guys going to be booting the ball for BYU? Well, spring's going to give us an introduction to those players, and some of them are good options, but will they be as consistent as past options? We'll dig into that